Wuthering Heights, Chapter 2. Yesterday afternoon set in misty and cold. I had half a mind to spend it by my study fire instead of wading through heath and mud to Wuthering Heights. On coming up from dinner, however, on mounting the stairs with this lazy intention and stepping into the room, I saw a servant girl on her knees surrounded by brushes and coal scuttles and raising an infernal dust as she extinguished the flames with heaps of cinders. This spectacle drove me back immediately. I took my hat and after a 4 miles walk arrived at Heathcliff's garden gate just in time to escape the first feathery flakes of a snow shower. On that bleak hilltop, the earth was hard with a black frost, and the air made me shiver through every limb. Being unable to remove the chain, I jumped over and, running up the flagged causeway bordered with straggling gooseberry bushes, knocked vainly for admittance till my knuckles tingled and the dogs howled. Wretched inmates, I ejaculated mentally, you deserve perpetual isolation from your species for your Curlish in hospitality. At least I would not keep my doors barred in the daytime. I don't care, I will get in. So resolved, I grasped the latch and shook it vehemently. Vinegar faced Joseph projected his head from a round window of the barn. What are ye for? He shouted. The master's down it fouled. Go round by the end of the lane if ye want to speak to him. Is there nobody inside to open the door? I hallooed responsively. There is no but, missus, and she will not open it, and ye make your flay some dinst till night. Why cannot you tell her whom I am a Joseph, nor name me? I will have no hand with it, muttered the head vanishing. The snow began to drive thickly. I seized the handle to essay another trial when a young man without coat and shouldering a pitchfork appeared in the yard behind. He hailed me to follow him, and after marching through a wash house and a paved area containing a coal shed, pump, and pigeon cote, we at length arrived in the huge, warm, cheerful apartment where I was formerly received. It glowed delightfully in the radiance of an immense fire, compounded of coal, peat, and wood, and near the table, laid for a plentiful evening meal. I was pleased to observe the missus, an individual whose existence I had never previously suspected. I bowed and waited, thinking she would bid me take a seat. She looked at me, leaning back in her chair, and remained motionless and mute. Rough weather, I remarked. I'm afraid, Mrs. Heathcliff, the door must bear the consequence of your servants' leisure attendance. I had hard work to make them hear me. She never opened her mouth. I stared, she stared also. At any rate, she kept her eyes on me in a cool, regardless manner, exceedingly embarrassing and disagreeable. Sit down, said the young man gruffly. He will be in soon. I obeyed and hemmed, and called the villain Juno, who deigned at the second interview to move the extreme tip of her tail in token of owning my acquaintance. A beautiful animal, I commenced again. Do you intend parting with the little ones, madam? They are not mine, said the amiable hostess more repellingly than Heathcliff himself could have replied. Ah, your favourites are among these, I continued, turning to an obscure cushion full of something like cats. A strange choice of favourites, she observed scornfully. Unluckily, it was a heap of dead rabbits. I hemmed once more and drew closer to the hearth, repeating my comment on the wildness of the evening. You should not have come out, she said, rising and reaching from the chimney piece two of the painted canisters. Her position before was sheltered from the light. Now I had a distinct view of her whole figure and countenance. She was slender and apparently scarcely past girlhood, an admirable form and the most exquisite little face that I have ever had the pleasure of beholding. Small features, very fair, flaxen ringlets or rather golden, hanging loose on her delicate neck and eyes, had they been agreeable in expression. that would have been irresistible. Fortunately for my susceptible heart, the only sentiment they evinced hovered between scorn and a kind of desperation, singularly unnatural to be detected there. The canisters were almost out of her reach. I made a motion to aid her. She turned upon me as a miser might turn if anyone attempted to assist him in counting his gold. I don't want your help. She snapped, I can get them for myself. I beg your pardon. I hastened to reply. Were you asked to tea? She demanded, tying an apron over her neat black frock and standing with a spoonful of the leaf poised over the pot. I shall be glad to have a cup, I answered. Where you asked, She repeated. No, I said, half smiling. You are the proper person to ask me. She flung the tea bag, spoon and all, and resumed her chair in a pet, her forehead corrugated and her red underlip pushed out like a child's ready to cry. Meanwhile, the young man had slung on to his person a decidedly shabby upper garment and, erecting himself before the blaze, looked down on me from the corner of his eyes for all the world as if there were some mortal feud unavenged between us. I began to doubt whether he were a servant or not. His dress and speech were both rude, entirely devoid of the superiority observable in Mr. and Mrs. Heathcliff. His thick brown curls were rough and uncultivated. His whiskers encroached bearishly over his cheeks, and his hands were embrowned like those of a common laborer. Still, his bearing was free, almost haughty, and he showed none of a domestic's assiduity in attending on the lady of the house. In the absence of clear proofs of his condition, I deemed it best to abstain from noticing his curious conduct, and 5 minutes afterwards, the entrance of Heathcliff relieved me in some measure from my uncomfortable state. Thank you.